I never intended to reach this point, but your endless behavior pushed me to the edge. Sometimes patience has limits, and when it's crossed, even the calmest soul can break. I stayed silent for far too long, trying to keep the peace, but the way you continuously tested my limits made it inevitable. It wasn't my choice to snap, it was a reaction to being pushed too hard. You wanted to see how far I could be stretched, but now you see the breaking point. It's not anger that fueled my response, but frustration from being ignored for so long. I've been patient, understanding, and forgiving, but you've mistaken my calmness for weakness. Don't blame me for snapping. It was a result of your own actions. You threw tantrums thinking it would get you attention, but in the end, it's not about what you want from me. It's about respecting boundaries. And when those are crossed, things change. I didn't want things to escalate this way, but every action has a consequence. If you push someone enough, eventually they'll respond in a way you didn't expect. It's not about me losing control. It's about me finally finding the strength to stand up to the behavior that made me feel unheard and disrespected. Sometimes you push someone so far that they no longer recognize their own reactions. It's not about throwing tantrums. It's about feeling like there's no other choice but to break free from the pressure. You pushed me to the point of snapping, but now I know where my limits are. I won't allow myself to be dragged into this cycle again. When you keep testing the waters, eventually the dam will break. I never intended for things to get this far, but here we are. It's not about giving in to anger. It's about recognizing when your boundaries have been violated one too many times. I tried to stay calm, to keep the peace, but your repeated behavior left me no choice. You pushed me to react in a way I never thought I would. Patience is a virtue, but even the most patient person has a breaking point. It wasn't me who chose to snap. It was the result of everything leading up to this moment. When someone continuously tests your limits, eventually they'll find out what happens when those limits are surpassed. I didn't want to sap, but you left me no other choice. It's not that I didn't care. It's that I cared too much for too long. Eventually, that care turns into frustration, and frustration turns into something you didn't see coming. You pushed and pushed, expecting me to bend, but every push made me stronger. Now, I stand firm, no longer willing to tolerate the treatment you thought was acceptable. I didn't want to react this way, but after so many tests, so many games, you made me. I snapped not because I wanted to, but because your actions forced me into a corner. I gave you chances, I gave you patience, But every moment I stayed silent, I lost a piece of myself. And when I finally snapped, it wasn't a choice, it was a necessity for self-preservation. You wanted to push my buttons, but you didn't realize the strength it takes to stay silent under pressure. Now that I have snapped, it's not a loss of control. It's a reclaiming of my own power. It wasn't about revenge. It was about protecting myself from further harm. When you keep pushing someone, eventually they'll snap to protect their peace. There's a difference between patience and passivity. I wasn't being passive. I was waiting for a sign that things would change. But now I know that change comes from within, not from waiting for others. You thought you could control the narrative by throwing tantrums, but in the end, the one who is in control is the one who chooses not to tolerate such behavior anymore. I tried to be patient, tried to understand you, but eventually the frustration built up. You didn't see me snapping coming, but it was always the result of your actions. You may think I snapped because of your tantrums, but it's not the tantrums that broke me. It's the disrespect, the constant pushing, and the lack of understanding. It wasn't an outburst. It was a breaking of chains. I had to snap to remind myself that I deserve respect and that I can no longer stand by in silence. You pushed me to a place I didn't want to go, and when I finally spoke up, it was never about the moment. It was about everything leading up to it. I wasn't the one who wanted to snap. I was the one trying to maintain peace. But peace doesn't exist when your boundaries are constantly violated. Sometimes you have to break free from the pattern. I snapped because I realized that I deserve more than what you were giving me. I didn't snap out of nowhere. Every tantrum, every disregard for my feelings led me to this moment. It was a buildup of everything I had been holding inside.